Welcome back to What Arty Noobs for General Disturbance. This is the IS-7. It's a Tier 10 Soviet heavy tank. It's located on the south spawn of Tundra, and this one has 3 marks on the barrel because it belongs to Awppenheimer of MAHOU. Now, this is the tank, the last tank with the IS designation. Because the next one up was the IS-8, and that actually became known as the T-10 in the end, simply because Stalin had died. But this tank is the tank that never was, in a sense, because although originally it started life as the Object 260, it never got put into full production, and eventually they just stayed with the T-10 instead. Okay, we've got a 13cm main gun, capable of 490 alpha, penetrating 250mm of armor with standard ammo, but you can see Oppenheimer's loaded the premium, and he's got 303mm of pen with the APCR. He just actually bounced around, that came from one of the enemy tanks as he was making his way down to the hill, and he's on his way up. There's a number of enemy tanks just sitting on the other side at the moment, and he's going to start firing at them straight away. Okay. Now this tank does have particularly strong armor so long as it's facing the enemy, because it's got a pike nose. If it doesn't face the enemy, it can actually be damaged, and if the enemy is actually slightly off to one side, they get an advantage, because of course there's thin armor in the corners, on, you might say, the shoulders of the tank. We'll show you those when we show you the armor profile. Okay, so he got his first damage on A phase 1, who's immediately gone into pull back. The 7032 went into cover. He didn't want to get hit, and well, some of the other enemy tanks are just being very, very cagey. They don't want to come forward because they know an IS-7 could ruin their day. 703 takes them round, 440. It's a low roll. The engineers who actually worked on this tank loved it because they said it was very responsive. All throughout the testing, they thought this was, you know, the best tank, and it was designed to effectively take out Jagdtigers. And the guy who actually designed this also had a hand. Oh, lovely shot to the lower plate of the E-100. The guy who actually devised this tank actually had a hand in the plans for the KV-4 as well, which was the Object 906. Oh, the wrong angle. He got the upper plate of the E-100 and it just zoomed off. He said this was one of the most technologically advanced tanks that the Soviets had at the time. They started work on it in Leningrad just after the end of the war in 1945. But unfortunately, you know, after all the work they did, in the end, they just decided that it wasn't for them. In fact, the thing is, the weight of this tank was just under 71 tons. And of course, the T-10 was a lot lighter. Oh, effortlessly wiped out there. The thing about the T-10 was, because it was lighter, it could actually manage to get over the bridges in Europe. That round that just came in from the E-100, that was an HE round, and that's why it only did 159 hit points. And you can see that Oppenheimer is still firing the APCR, and he's getting decent pens but low rolls. The shot before last was actually a high roll, 520, but the next one was a low roll. Oh, that was a low roll on the Char Future 4. Probably could have penetrated him with a standard HE round. He's always reverse side scraping now. Okay, he managed to do that to actually get up the hill, so he's a little further up. I think he wants a shot on that Char Future. Yeah, the HE rounds are capable of doing 640 alpha, and here we go. Oh, that was tempting. I think the Char Future 4 was baiting him there to shoot. The guy's only got a one shot anyway. He's going to be out the game. And I suspect our M48 Patton wants him. Oh no, Patton's dead. So my mistake. Okay, we locked on. And that's a good kill. He let the gun drift back down on... It flipped up just momentarily. But he let it drift back down again and got the kill. We're 2 up on the enemy. And there are a number of enemy tanks in sight, including a Shrek. Takes a round at long range. 451, low roll. There's a BZ-176 down in that track that leads up to the cap. Oh! What a shot! Straight through the scenery, and he got 192 off the Shrek as he died. But it was a good shot because he was moving behind all of that destructible scenery, and the shot just went straight through it. Okay, the E100's pulled back. Where'd we go over here? Oh, we can kill the E100. Oh! Well, that was unfortunate, that. Just hit it at the wrong angle. Didn't get a pen. Can hit the Progetto, though. Yes, 558 high roll. And a potential high caliber. Our T55A is still smoking after being taken out, but no, that's not a shot. No, is he going to come down or is he going to stay? Oh, Striv! And we got hit in the rear by an AE Phase 1, the same one from the start of the game. And he's pumped around him, but he's actually, well, he's pumped 3 rounds into us. But now, of course, he's unloaded. Oh! Will he find another one in? Okay, he's pulling back. That's unfortunate because all of those were heat rounds. So they all went through and they all did quite a lot of damage. And the A Phase 1, if I remember, is a 120mm. So they managed to do quite a bit of damage. In fact, actually, one of the rounds he received came from a Progetto. And the other 2 were from the A Phase 1, so it wasn't all the same tank that was hitting him. Scorpion G. Let's see what he can do with this one. Let it settle. Nice shot! High, well, not a high roll, 320. He's out the game, though. So that's 4 kills now. Well, that's interesting, because the A Phase 1 just killed our lure, and unfortunately our ISU-152 just took a big hit as well, 2 hits from the enemies who are trying to come up the hill. There's the Progetto that hit us earlier. Nice low roll, 452, and yes, our ISU-152 just bit the dust. And look who it is, it's the E100 and the A Phase 1. They're both trying to come up and kill us. E100 takes a high roll through the top of the turret. We bounced 2 rounds that came off there. That was rather lucky because they weren't at the right angle. Oh, look, he's trying to move about, but it's no good. He is out the game. And now the A Phase 1's got to come around the corner. Gives Awppenheimer a chance to turn around and present his strong face to the enemy. And 1 in the rear, and he's out the game, and that is the end of the game. It is a victory. Lots of shells bounced off the front. Here's the end of battle stats, and that was a first-class tanker for Awppenheimer in the IS-7. He managed to get a shell-proof for blocking more damage than the hit points of his own vehicle. He also got a duelist for taking down 2 tanks who damaged him, and a fire for effect for doing more damage than the hit points of his own vehicle, as well as a bruiser medal for getting at least 5 critical hits. In fact, he got 7 in total. He got a steel wall for blocking the most damage in the game, at least 11 hits and over 1,000 hit points of armor blocked, or damage blocked, and surviving the battle, as well as the high caliber for dealing the most damage in the game, tanker sniper for doing the most damage at a distance of 300 meters, and he also got a top gun for getting at least 6 kills, the last kill on the A Phase 1 being the 6th kill, to get that medal. His win rate from that one, 15,312. Let's have a look at team score. Well, highest damage was 7,720 hit points. The second highest damage was only 3,830, and that came from the enemy T110E3. The third highest damage in the game turned out to be the A Phase 1, the one that died right at the end, 3,627 hit points of damage. When it came to kills, yep, Awppenheimer got that one, 6 kills to him, 3 kills to the BZ-176 and also to the Lion on his own team, and then 2 kills went to, I think it was that, well, it's an unknown tank, so it must be one of the new ones, probably a T-54 Heavy or something of that nature. The A Phase 1 on the enemy team and their Shrek also got 2 kills. And when it came to base XP, he's got that one too, so he's got the top in all 3 columns. 1,309 went to Awppenheimer, 1,173 went to the BZ-176, and 1,125 went to the unknown tank, which I suspect actually turned out to be a T-54 Heavy. Anyway, let's have a look at the detail. He fired 25 rounds, 23 direct hits on the enemy, 19 penetrations, damage of 7,720 hit points, of which 2,433 were at more than 300 meters. He received 14 hits from the enemy, only 4 of which actually penetrated. In fact, it was rather unlucky that the shots that did penetrate either came from that Progetto who was shooting up at the hill, which he actually managed to get the lower plate of the IS-7, which is one of the weak spots, or it was that A Phase 1 firing in from his rear and hitting the engine bay. And he also had 8 non-penetrations, 2 hits by way of splash damage as well, and 2,470 hit points of damage blocked by armor. He spotted 4 enemy vehicles, damaged 8 of the enemy, killed 6 of them, and did 168 hit points of damage assist. On a premium count, he earned 101,772 credits for the battle, but after repair, ammunition, resupply, and consumables, and yes, he did fire a lot of APCR, a lot of premium rounds, he actually ended up with a loss of 55,780 credits for the game. He picked up 7 bonds because this was a tier 10 game, 1,963 XP for the battle, times 2 for the first victory, 982 for completing a mission, and 4,909 experience points altogether. So, well done to Awppenheimer. Nice haul of medals out of that one. The IS-7 is a difficult tank to take down, but it's also a difficult tank to get medals in. It is a bit of a monster, you might say, but yes, a lot of people at tier 10 do have trouble with this tank, and with good reason. It doesn't have much in the way of gun depression. It only has 6 degrees, which means that you have to take that into account while you're fighting, because you can't fight ridgelines as effectively as the tanks which can do 10 degrees of gun depression or more. This is the armor profile for the IS-7. And we can see that if you're looking at the armor straight on, the pike nose becomes obvious. The armor is only 150 millimeters thick, but just look at the angle. It's 318 or thereabouts, depending on where you actually fire. It goes up as you go further away from the pike nose. The driver's obviously sitting directly in front of there. This is one of the weak spots. It's only 150 millimeters, but it's coming out at 226 millimeters of armor on the lower plates. The turret, well, don't even bother to try and penetrate that. You're not going to get through. 240 millimeters, but with such angling that it actually comes out at about 390 in some places. You're not going to get through that either. And the mantlet, well, forget it. It's basically spaced armor as well as the extra bit of armor from the turret. You can penetrate through the sides of the vehicle, and you can see here that it's got a kind of angled armor just over the track area as well. And that's relevant when it comes to actual modules later on. But it does deflect the shells, which could come in at that angle and bounce down into the tracks. So if you look at it side on, you don't want to aim for this area here, because that's where it will bounce into the tracks. And if it's just got this narrow strip where it's flat, where you could get through, but it's very unlikely you will. And of course, if you aim for this area here, that's where it's nice and flattish, or so to speak, just underneath the turret there. And of course, if you go for the rear of the turret, this area here, it's only 185 millimeters, but still thick. And the rear of the vehicle, 94 millimeters, coming out about 104. The engine bay area, and of course, you can go through the engine bay area, 70 millimeters. That's why the A Phase 1 did. He he was aiming at a weak spot there by going through the rear of the vehicle. If you're Arty and you're aiming from above, well, you've got these areas of the roof which are only 13mm thick, so you should be able to pen that. But of course, it's difficult to get the shells to land flush directly down on top of this beast. The cupolas are actually within wells. You can see here, it's rather weird that they've actually reversed the cupolas in a sense, but they put these sightings here, the sights, to actually enable the crew to actually do their job. If I remember correctly, that the commander sight's there, the gunner's sight is there, but we'll see that in the modules later. It's much more interesting looking at this tank from the live perspective. Now, if you look at it from the front, as he's looking straight at you, you can see that the weak spot is the lower plate when he's looking directly at you, but the rest of the tank is hard armor. You're not going to get through that from this angle. More than likely, the shells are going to either bounce off in that way, or they're going to hit the turret and they're just not going to go through. You only see the weak spot when you see you can shoot at it from an angle, and all of a sudden the plates of the cheek or the pike nose suddenly show you where it's actually weakest. It's only 150mm. Here it's about 233, but it goes down to about 227, 225. So if you can actually hit this tank from an angle, you can actually go through there, or you can go through that spot, that very narrow strip there, or you can actually try and shoot into the side of the tank here, where you're actually going to get fairly thin armor. Well, 150mm coming up to effective 244. So yes, you're much better off aiming at an angle into this tank. And as Awppenheimer was engaging those tanks on the hill, he was actually giving them the opportunity. They were seeing this, but occasionally the ones that are at an angle to him were actually seeing that. And of course, the A Phase 1 saw that, which was much easier to penetrate. So you don't want to give the enemy your rear, and you want to keep yourself facing the enemy at any one time, but try and cover that lower plate, because that lower plate is fairly weak. Well, 150mm coming out at 233. You should be able to penetrate that with either standard rounds or APCR or premium rounds. So yes, I think you can see there that this tank, when it's angled, you don't want to angle it deliberately, because of course you will make these pike nose weak, these side plates, these cheeks rather weak on the upper plate. But if you're face onto the enemy, you're very strong. Now let's have a quick look at the modules. Okay, on the modules you can see, yes, that's the TC with the TC sight there. There's the gunner with the gunner's sight. There's two loaders, because these are 13cm shells, and there's an ammo rack in the back of the bustle. There are also ammo racks all along the side of the tank, especially where that armor is only slightly angled. So if you actually do manage to put a shell through that spot, you might hit the ammo rack. Likewise, if you can get it through the hull or the weak spot just above where it's angled, you might also hit another ammo rack, because this tank is littered with ammo racks. And if you're aiming in through the cheeks, you're probably going to hit another ammo rack there. The driver's sitting up front in the center, and there's fuel tanks all the way along the bottom of the tank. But remember, it's the tracks either side of that, so they're not likely to let the shell through. The road wheels will stop the shell. But you can see that there are numerous weak spots or modules where near the weak spots, so you can actually damage this. There's the engine with the fuel tanks either side and transmission directly at the back. But if you look at the arrangement, you can see that the engine is actually almost like a big V. And unlike those other American or British tanks, Allied tanks, which actually have the fuel tanks almost straight up, either side, sandwiching the engine, these ones are just slotting in at the back. So yes, if you aim anywhere near the rear, you're more than likely going to hit the engine of the vehicle, but that will protect the crew, but it will slow the vehicle down. And if you can aim a shell into the rear of the bustle, then you might be able to get an ammo rack that way. I recommend just aiming directly underneath the turret on the hull of the body to actually get the shell in through there. But if you're facing it from the front, ideally you want to try and get it in through the cheeks if you can. Don't ever try and shoot it from the front like this, because, well, the only place you can go for is the lower plate. And if the lower plate is covered, then you're not going to be able to get a shot on it. That's why the guys who are at the other side of the hill, who were looking up at it, were having a lot of difficulty, because all they could see were hard spots. They couldn't see any weak spots at all. because the weak spot that was actually facing them was covered. They couldn't see it at all. So there you go. That's where all the modules are on the IS-7. We have another replay featuring the IS-7. Let's have a look at that one straight away. In this replay, we've got Zyriakster, and he's actually starting on exactly the same spawn as Awppenheimer on Tundra. Okay, so this should be interesting because it's a comparison between two different players, and I've been very fascinated to find out who's actually going to come out best on this one. Now you notice Zyriakster's done exactly the same as Awppenheimer, except he's decided not to carry any HE shells whatsoever, just premium APCR. It's going up the hill. I mean, a quick look just in case anybody was going to try and snapshot him as he went up. Looks like the enemy's managed to get a Barask onto the hill already, but I'm not so sure he's going to stay on the hill for very long. Okay, we're angling. Oh, we're side on to the enemy, so we do take a hit there from the Progetto 54. He let that guy see his side armor, which is why he took that shot. Okay, but he's actually at an angle here, which is not so great. The Barask is gone. He's out the game. The enemy tanks in front of him didn't come up. Only the Progetto. Oh, an E-75. Oh, and he took a round, and I think that round, yes, it went through the lower plate. And he suffered 517 hit points, so I think that was a 128mm round. Okay, he's cautious now. Oh, took a round in the tracks from a Leopard who's up on the hill. He's definitely playing it different to Awppenheimer. And, oh, thank you very much. We'll have that. He actually gets a high roll on that guy, 496. And, oh, that's unfortunate. The Brass just killed our Progetto 46, which means now he's reloading. And we have to pull back a bit, because otherwise we're going to suffer shots from the Brass. Okay, get one into the Leopard prototype. Unfortunately, our BZ-175 just got wiped out by the Leopard prototype who's hidden. There he is, actually showing now. And he takes one through the roof, and it's a high roll for 521. The Barask has popped round the corner. Our teammates are aiming up at him, so we don't want to block them at all. And, yep, he can have that one, and he's out the game. But we took a round from the AMX M454 for 587. So that was a very bad exchange. Well, yes, we got to kill the Barask, but took a big hit for that AMX M454. Okay, Yo Tank. A good snap, but not good enough to beat the movement there by Zyriakster pulling back in time. But he did take a low round from the Leopard prototype, an HE round. Fires one into the AMX M454 as he pulls back. So bad move by the AMX M454, not giving him a chance to return fire. And the Leopard's still trying. But now we go for the turret roof. Nope, doesn't work. See our guys pulling back altogether. They're leaving it to Zyriakster to deal with these guys. Nope, no chance. He decided it's just not worth trying a chance on that one, because now he can. Oh, bounced off. Okay, the 263's got the armor to try and block anything the others are doing, and so we can snipe at them. Our Carnarvon is not being hugely effective there. He might be better off going around. Very low hit points as well on the Carnarvon. I think he's finding it's more protective to be in that corner than it is to be out in the main battlefield. 263 still blocking the enemy from coming up any further. Ah. Now that was a good try. Didn't work, but it was a good try because there was enough there to work with. You only get 30 rounds on the IS-7, so you have to make them work for you. Of course, that 30 rounds can do a huge amount of damage, depending on how you play them. Note, the enemy doesn't want to come out to play. Oh, Magetto 54 comes into sight to as soon as the 263 falls away. Oh, we got the kill. The Leopard's gone. Nice shot. So it was worth snapping a shot in. The AMX M454 just fired a round in and has made another of our tanks pull away. Okay, so now can we get around into that AMX? Well, he's pulled back as well. We know that they've got another tank on that corner. There he is, Magetto. M454 keeps popping up, but he's not giving us much to work with. And I think our teammates have suddenly decided, yes, they can outflank these guys, come round, and that's going to force them to move. And in fact, the Progetto's abandoned his position because I think he suddenly realised that they are fairly weak from where they are. They've got a G-Saw above them, but he's not really in the game. It's a tier 10 game with tier 8 tanks in it. That G-Saw is just sitting up there, apparently doing absolutely nothing. He would have difficulty trying to take on an IS-7. Okay, now it looks like there's nobody there. I think the M454 is still there. There he is. Hello. And that hit the tracks. That's unfortunate. And we bounced the rounds that came off there. Nicely angled. The G-Saw didn't get anything out of that whatsoever. We know which side the G-Saw's on now, so we can actually do something about that. He's sitting behind that bush. And now the AMX M454 just took a big hit from somebody, and I think it was the Skoda, and he's abandoned his position. And he's out the game. Nice shot. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think the Skoda actually caused that problem for the enemy, and he had to abandon it. Oh, G-Saw trying to get shots into us. Hit the tracks. You see those road wheels, they're very, very well compacted together to actually block any shots going in through the side. Oh, Yo tank. Yep, took a hit, but it was a low roll, 472. We took a hit as well. You can see it actually went onto the cheeks of the vehicle. Okay, he's looking behind himself, wondering if that G-Saw is going to come up behind him. Actually, I think the other reason why the Yo tank got the shot in is down to the fact that... oh, good kill shot. He saw the Shrek coming, he lined the shot up and got the kill. Yeah, the Yo tank was shooting down into the armour of the IS-7. He was coming down the hill, and that's how he managed to get the pen. It's 2 versus 3 now, the end game. The enemy's got a Rhinocerente, a Leopard prototype, and the G-Saw. Well, the G-Saw's still up behind him, so whoever's in the camp had to be either the Rhinocerente or the Leopard. I think it was probably the Leopard. He's disappeared. There's the Leopard. He's actually behind us now. Oh, it was the Rhinocerente that went through the cap. Okay, so they're both in this area, and the G-Saw can't protect them. So we can come down behind the Rhinocerente, finish him off, and then we go after the Leopard. Okay. In fact, he does it the other way around. He takes out the Leopard first. But they're both one-shots. And so long as the G-Saw's the other side of the hill, there's not a lot he can do, but he might go up onto the hill to try and shoot down on us. Zyriakster's changing his position, almost tempting the enemy to come into the cap. I think he's worried about that G-Saw shooting down on him. The Rhinocerente's coming up into the cap area, and we've been spotted, so no surprise for the enemy when he does see us. Now he could double back and go back where he was, come through the bushes. he's trying to find a position where he can get at the Rhino Sorrente without the G-Saw doing it. Oh, yes, he can. And that's him out the game. That's his top gun. Nicely done. It all fell together for him at the right moment. If he had actually driven around the corner and tried to engage the Rhino Sorrente, I'm pretty sure the Leopard prototype would have actually put holes in him from above on the hill. So he actually made the right decision not to chase the Rhino Sorrente and just take the target of opportunity, the Leopard prototype, as he was. But now he's got to try and kill the G-Saw. And here he is! Oh, we missed him! Now that guy might have 4 105mm shells. And he has fired 1, he's tracked us. And we did take a pen there. And he's got 1 in, but he's still a 1 shot. Oh, we're taking shells through the lower plate. The next one could kill us, but it's not going to, and we're going to get the drop on the load, and that's the end of the game. Well played, Zyriakster. Here's the end of battle stats, and Zyriakster got his first ace tanker in the IS-7 out of that game. You can tell it's the first because it's got the scrolls underneath. You only get that the first time, so congratulations on that. He also got a Reaper badge to taking out 3 enemy vehicles with consecutive shots. He got a fire for effect for doing more damage than the hit points of his own vehicle, as well as a sharpshooter for getting 10 or more consecutive hits on the enemy tank, as well as a shell proof for blocking more damage exceeding the hit points of his own vehicle, a master gunner for getting 5 armor penetrating shots in a row, a duelist for taking down 2 tanks who damaged him, a bruiser medal for getting at least 5 critical hits, he got 6, and a hand of God for surviving the battle, having received damage from 4 different enemy tanks or more. And on top of that, he actually got a Spartan medal by blocking a non-penetrating shot, and that came from the G-Saw right at the end of the game when he had very low hit points left. He blocked a shot from the G-Saw, and that sealed the battle, because then Zyriakster actually managed to reload and finish off the G-Saw before he could start his reload, as well as a steel wall for blocking the most damage in the game, at least 11 hits and over 1,000 hit points, and surviving, and a Top Gun as well for getting at least 6 kills in that battle. In fact, he ended up with 7, 1 short of getting a Radley Waters. His win rate in that game was 6,942, and I guess the win rate wasn't quite as high as Awppenheimer's, mainly down to the fact that he was facing both tier 10s and tier 8s, so that's the problem. Whereas Awppenheimer was facing nothing but, I think it was nothing but tier 8s and tier 10 and tier 9s. So yes, I think Zyriakster had some weaker vehicles in there, which is why the win rate wasn't quite so high. But let's have a look at the team score and see how he did. Well, he didn't get the highest damage in the game. That actually went to the Skoda T50, who got 6,179 hit points. He picked up a high caliber and Confederate, but unfortunately he didn't survive the battle. Zyriakster was all on his own at the end of the game. When it came to the second highest damage, that was Zyriakster with 5,343, and the third highest damage was the T110E5 on the enemy team with 4,882. So 3 very good players all at the end of the game. Well, not all at the end of the game, but 3 good players scored the most damage. He got the highest number of kills, 7 kills to Zyriakster. 3 kills went to the E5, the Leopard prototype on the enemy team, and 2 kills went to the Skoda T50, the Waffenträger Aufpanzer, the Progetto 54, and the Rhino Sorrente. And when it came to base XP, he's actually got the second place because the Skoda managed 1,321 because, of course, he was tier 9 and he was fighting tier 10 tanks. He was getting 10% extra for hitting the higher tier ones, whilst Zyriakster got 1,271, which is very close, and the third highest in the game turned out to be the Waffenträger Aufpanzer with 956. Zyriakster fired 21 rounds, so he still had 9 rounds left at the end of the game. That's quite a lot, because mostly on this tank, you tend to run out of ammo, because it only carries 30 rounds overall for the entire battle. 19 direct hits, 15 penetrations on the enemy, so only 2 shells went astray, and I think both of those happened when he was trying to shoot at those enemy tanks up on the hill. They were being very, very difficult. 5,343 hit points, all of it done at close range. 18 hits received from the enemy, only 6 penetrated, 11 non-penetrations, and 1 hit by way of splash damage, 3,070 hit points of damage blocked by armor. He spotted 1 enemy vehicle, damaged 9 of the enemy, killed 7 of them, and he earned 77,793 credits for the game, and on a premium count, 38,897 from personal reserves, 116,690 credits altogether. But because he was firing premium ammo, we can see after his costs, he actually made a smaller loss than Awppenheimer, only 15,365 credits from that battle. 25 bonds because it was tier 10, plus 7 for this being 25 bonds for a mission achievement, rather, I should say. 7 bonds for it being tier 10, 32 in total. 1,906 XP for the battle, 953 from personal reserves, and 2,859 experience points altogether. So both battles, incredible battles, fighting out with an IS-7. Very difficult for the enemy to take him down, but they were getting damage. And the same happened to Awppenheimer in his battle as well. So it's not surprising that other players find it very difficult to bring down IS-7s. And that's why they are a prime target for Arty, because, of course, Arty can hit these tanks and do severe damage to them, and that does help their teammates to bring them down eventually. But incredible games. Congratulations to Zyriakster for his win, and also to Awppenheimer in his replay. I hope you enjoyed both of those replays. If you did, please give this video a like. Do subscribe to our channel. Leave a little comment down below because it feeds the algorithm. And thank you for watching.